this is Pam from Your Nurse Advocate Consulting. We are on episode 7, Bedside Stories. This is strike 3, you're out. And this is to wrap up my stories that's been leading up to when I was working in the emergency room. We had a provider, an ER doc, that was working, kind of part-time in the emergency room, working night shifts. And just to kind of recap, strike 1 was he knocked the Lifeline computer system out all night long. So if anyone pushed their button, they weren't going to get anybody. He put a game on there, a video game. And strike 2 was when we had an issue with a little 3-month-old baby that needed to be admitted to the hospital, and he blamed that on poor parenting skills. And so that was strike 2. And this was all in episode 6. If you want to go back and hear the full story, you can go to episode 6 on that. But this is episode 7. This is an RN's journey to becoming a patient advocate, and kind of what made me and what really pushed me to fight for the things that I felt my patients needed, or when I felt that they weren't being treated properly. And so this whole ER experience really played a big role in that with me, because I learned, as I explained earlier, growing up, in the early 80s as a nurse, we were really taught, it's cover the doc's keister, always got their back. If they're crabby, make excuses for, just that back then, that was the philosophy. And I know now our new nurses that are coming up, they're being taught to be more assertive and, to question the docs, not to question them incessantly, but not to be afraid to ask for an explanation. Or if you don't understand why they're ordering something, it's okay to ask them to please explain themselves. And that's a much more healthy way for us to be in. And it at least allows us to have a voice and have our concerns expressed in any particular situation. Doctors, nurses, we're all humans. Nurses make mistakes, doctors make mistakes. We hope those mistakes don't hurt anyone. But in this case, I had to do something. So strike 3. So this gentleman, this ER doc, I was on again, and I don't know why I always ended up landing on the days that he was on, and I really didn't like it, but I didn't have a choice. So we were talking before about when we were working in our emergency room, you could be assigned to different parts of the ER. There was triage. So when someone came into the emergency room, you took their vital signs, found out why you were there, decided if they had to go back right away or if they could wait in the waiting room. There was the medical side, where if you, stomach ache, asthma attack, kids, ear infections, things like that, that was on the medical side, like I said, abdominal pain, things like that. Then we had the trauma side. The trauma side was cuts, bruises, lacerations, injuries that weren't too serious. And then we had the 2 big, what we called cardiac trauma rooms, where the bad stuff went. Those rooms were bigger. It held more people, so because it took more people to involve in these cases. And so when you worked in that emergency room, you were assigned to one of those areas. So this night I was assigned to the 2 big cardiac rooms. And so I was, if anything bad was coming in or critical, then that I was the nurse that was owned that patient. So it was in the middle of the night, and I saw one of our employees from the hospital came in, and she said that her husband has asthma, and he waited too long to come to the hospital, and if we could get him, back right away. So right away, I could see that he was struggling to breathe. He had tried to take care of his symptoms at home, his inhalers, nothing was working. So I escorted him into one of my rooms, because I really saw that he was struggling, and I was worried that this could go bad very quickly. And so this ER doc was sitting at the counter flirting with nurses, as he always did. And by this time, he wouldn't listen to me. And, and that was part of, I'm sure part of the issue why I couldn't get him in the room when I needed to, because I was that ankle biting dog to him. I was that pest. I was always the one, calling him out. But I strongly felt that somebody needed to. And so I got the IV started, and I was afraid to leave the room because he was just struggling to breathe so bad. And we had a policy that you can't yell in the ER because that got people scared. And so I'm literally straddling the doorway. I have 1 foot in the room, 1 foot outside of the room, and I'm trying to get his attention. And I'm like, Dr. So-and-so, please, get in here. We need, I'm worried about this gentleman. I'm afraid we're going to have to intubate him. Please, can you please come in here? I'll be in there in a minute. I'll be in there in a minute. And I'm saying, please, please come now, come now. And I wouldn't leave the patient. I wouldn't leave that straddling, because I had to keep an eye on my patient and also trying to get the attention of the emergency room doctor. And then I see his eyes roll back, and I just yelled. I had no other choice. I yelled and I said, Dr. So-and-so, get in cardiac room 2 now. And so then he, gets up there and goes in there. Well, now he sees the man he needs to be intubated, needs to put a tube down to help him breathe. And he's yelling at me because he's seizing now because of a lack of oxygen. The man is now in full-blown seizures. And the doc's yelling at me because I can't get a second IV in fast enough while his arms are going all like this. And it was a horrible mess, horrible, horrible, horrible mess. And the man died. And I was so angry and so upset. And so the next morning, when the managers and all the directors came in, I went and I complained. I gave my 1, 2, 3 strike, and I said it was uncalled for. And here it, I it's an employee, and not that we treat them special, but it's like your family member coming in. It's someone, it's someone, there's a connection there. It's because you know them and you work with them and you see them every day. And I didn't know what to say to his wife. How can I explain to his wife that I did everything that I thought I could to get her husband the attention that he needed, and he died anyway? And from that point on, I didn't have any trouble saying anything to anybody, healthcare provider, whether it was a doctor, another nurse, another type of healthcare service provider, therapist, anything. From that point on, I figured, you know what, I don't care. I'm going to open my mouth. But you know what? They talk about bullying in the workplace. They talk about backlash. They talk about consequences. I had consequences. Actually, the medical director it was the medical director made it very clear that he was unhappy that he had to fire that physician. And, but it was, I think the administration, I think it was the right thing to do. And so I was in triage one night, and the medical director comes in, and I'm triaging this woman. She just sat down. I'm trying to get her vital signs, just trying to assess what's going on. And he knew I went to triage because I didn't want to work in the back with him. I didn't want to have to deal with him because I knew he was not happy with me. And so he marches into the triage. You got to get back here right now. This nurse, she's missing everything. She's missing the details. You're very sick. And she really wasn't. And she ended up going home, and he made this big deal. It was absolutely horrible. Made me feel like such a jerk. And they just continued to make it very, very uncomfortable for me to work in the ER. So I had to look for another job. I mean, I was completely bullied out of that job. And you know what? If I had to do it all over again, I would. I would do the same thing, take the same steps that I did. My baby was sick. And my pediatrician, as I mentioned in the last episode, who helped me out with that. I mean, they made fun of him. They told him that he wasn't treating my baby properly. And I mean, it was just a mess. It was the most unprofessional um series of events and consequences afterward that um I just it was just unbearable. And I will never forget that. But again, what that did for me in advocating for my patients and making sure I stand up for them and make sure that I feel that they are treated properly and get the services and the treatment that they need. I I am now a dog with a bone. So if for any reason you have to use our services and you become a client of mine, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do these series. It's very hard. I'm not selling a widget. I'm not selling, a subscription box. I'm not selling something that, if you spend $50 or $20, that it's no big deal. I mean, I'm someone that you have to trust me with your family, with a loved one, someone that you care about very much. And it's hard when you don't know me and you don't know my abilities or what I can do. It's hard for people to want to, know, like, and trust me if they don't know me. So, I did these series, and I'm gonna consider to see if there's a couple more of these in me, but I did these series because I wanted to, not because I wanted to talk about me and what a great nurse I am. No, I wanted to show who I was. I wanted to try and show you in the beginning. If you watch from the beginning, you can see that there were some things that I did that I regretted in being a new nurse and being more task orientated than a- and so it's been a journey for me, but I just wanted you to take this journey with me and learn what has impacted me in many ways as far as wanting to become an advocate for my patients. So we will see you back here soon for at least one more episode. But this is Pam with Your Nurse Advocate Consulting, and this has been Bedside Stories, episode 7. Take care.